We could say this is a bad joke. As you just said, a joke written by a 5-year-old. Should the guy be in court?
It is tasteless, but if we were going to start putting in prison everything that's tasteless, that's most of the British cuisine that needs to be banged up for 3 years, isn't it?
We basically live in a thought prison already, and you can face actually very harsh consequences if you deviate from the, let's say, the righteous path, or the path that they have set as the righteous one.
Welcome back to Interference. I'm Justin. We have the inimitable Alex joining us from the UK. Hi, Alex.
Hello there.
Alex
Guten
had
Tag.
her phone stolen last week. What happened, Alex?
Well, somehow I managed to get it back, which is a rarity in London, but I think that's the third time now in a year. So it's just London's lawless.
3 times in 1 year?
Yeah.
All the same on the street?
Yeah. You just if you get out your phone in central London because you want to check a text message or look at Google Maps, it will be gone out of your hands in a matter of seconds.
But you got this one back because the local police were on hand.
Because they were kids doing wheelies and smashing into people, and there were police on hand for once upon a time, which almost never happens.
So they nabbed them and you got your phone back.
I did.
Well. All's well that ends well, I guess. No, maybe not, actually. Listen, we have a guest. The guest's name is Chris Gattringer, and he is the Brussels Signal guy who writes about Germany. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Justin. Hello, Brussels Signal's viewers, I guess.
Very, very well done. Very diplomatically put. The title of this episode, I think it might be episode 5, is Can Jokes Become Crimes? Now, we have Chris on. He's the Germany expert because he has written a couple of really good stories. One about El Hotzo. El Hotzo is up for a crime, and that crime is telling jokes that are distinctly not funny, especially when it comes to the attempted assassination of US President Donald Trump. Tell us a bit about this story.
Yes, so as we all remember, last July there was an attempt at Donald Trump's life in Pennsylvania, which left a bystander dead. And El Hotzo, who rose to fame as an Instagram comedian with, probably depending on your viewpoint, rather not so funny jokes, and then got a gig working for German state TV. This El Hotzo used his Twitter account or X account to basically post, a joke that went as follows. What do Donald Trump and the last bus have in common? Oh, damn, just missed.
Right. Well, there you go.
Leave some time for you to...
Alex is smiling. Alex, is this funny?
I'm laughing because it's actually a rubbish joke, isn't it? It's really dreadful. It's almost obvious. It was written by a 5-year-old back in 1981.
Yeah, that was one of the high points of his humorous career, in my view. But he has a huge fan base. He even performed in New York at the Chelsea Comedy Club, I saw. So there are many people who enjoy his brand of humor, and there are also many people who follow him on X. I think now it's up to almost 1 million. Oh. And some of them actually complained about the joke and said it's rather tasteless when a man has just been killed, 3 others have been injured. The presidential candidate has been shot at, irrespective of his party. And then El Hotzo doubled down and wrote, "I love it when fascists die." And I don't know if that's how humorously that was meant. Anyway, he later deleted those tweets, but he's still facing, he's going to face the courts now because there's an article or a section, I don't know how the lawyers would refer to it, in the German Criminal Code, which is Article Section 140, which makes it illegal, a criminal offense to condone a crime. And the prosecutors are saying by making this tasteless joke, El Hotzo basically condoned the attempt at Donald Trump's life, and this offense is in theory punishable by up to, I think, 3 years in jail, prison. Yeah.
And this starts later this month, is that right? The trial? When are we going to see?
Yeah, I think it starts on the 23rd or 24th of July. It might be over within a day. So
What do you reckon,
we'll
Alex?
see
I mean,
what-
obviously, we could say this is a bad joke, as you just said, a joke written by a 5-year-old. Should the guy be in court?
No, it's a rubbish joke. Look, it is tasteless, but if we were going to start putting in prison everything that's tasteless, that's most of the British cuisine that needs to be banged up for 3 years, isn't it? So I don't think that it's appropriate at all. Look, people can criticise it, people can say it's not funny, that, let's be fair, joking about death is probably not a great idea. I remember back in the days when I was 14 years old, I used to go and work at hospital radio, and we were told that death was off limits, never mention death for obvious reasons. And so it's just using common sense, isn't it? You don't joke about death, but we have seen similar things happen in the United Kingdom, where someone on the left wing can be oh so funny. I remember the comedian Joe Bland on one of our most popular comedy shows, Have I Got News for You?, when people were going through this phase of throwing milkshakes at Nigel Farage back in 2015, joking, why don't they use battery acid? And everyone laughed in the studio, the clip went viral, and you thought to yourself, well, this is double standards, because if anyone had made a joke about throwing battery acid on anybody else, there would have been uproar and outrage. And back then you kind of thought, well, it's just really bad taste. But there was never any sense that someone would be taken to court for anything. But in the UK, much like in Germany, this is happening increasingly. We've actually got people serving 31-month jail sentences in the form of Lucy Connolly, who infamously wrote on X during the Southport riots after the massacre of those young girls in the Taylor Swift dance class by Axel Rudakabana. And there were suggestions going around that this might have been conducted by somebody in a migrant hotel, set fire to the things and everyone inside for all that I care. Now, that's a horrible sentiment, but it's not an instruction. You know, when you add on to the end, for all that I care, what you're doing is suggesting you're saying this tongue-in-cheek, that you're not actually ordering this as some sort of mandate. And yet she is still serving 31 months in prison. She's been put in a high secure unit. She's not being given any entitlement to leave because she's become a high profile political prisoner. And I think I remember a case as well in Germany where there was a young woman who was attacked by a foreign gang of boys and spoke out about them, might have used sort of racist language to describe the assailants, and she ended up being the one to face trial. So across Europe now, we have this really strange double standard of people, if they're talking about left-wing issues, can say what they like. If they're talking about right-wing issues, could actually face a prison term.
Right. So to a certain extent, Chris, this is the tables have been turned on this guy, right, in Germany, because he's a left-winger. Is he a left-winger?
Oh, I would say he's left-wing. Okay, I cannot say extremist. I guess that would be too harsh, but he's definitely, if you look at his jokes, I mean, half of them consist of calling policemen, I don't know, am I allowed to use expletives on the show?
Yes.
Like bad words, etc. And basically, if you look at his feed on X or also at his programs, it's all about, killing fascists, exterminating right-wingers, blah, blah, blah. Okay, of course, I'm paraphrasing a bit. Please don't sue me. But for example, he also wrote famously or infamously, there's a great way of protecting yourself from left-wing violence. Don't be a Nazi.
Yeah, how about that one, Alex? Do we like this one or not? If you want to protect yourself from left-wing extremist violence, don't be a Nazi. I'm looking at Alex, see if she smiles. Are you going to smile?
Isn't that surely because the Nazis didn't hurt one another? Right? You're going to talk about socialists, the danger of socialists. The Nazis went after the non-Nazis. So I suppose on some twisted logic, it makes sense.
Well, the big question, though, is surely bad jokes, good jokes, bad jokes, can they become crimes? And it seems to be the case that that's the way we're heading, isn't it, Chris? I mean, in Germany in particular, where they're renowned for their excellent sense of humour, of course, things seem... Are we heading in the wrong direction?
I should add... Well, first off, a disclaimer, I'm actually Austrian, so of course I don't have a
Doesn't that make it worse?
No, it makes it better because at least at humor we excel. At everything else we're probably behind the Germans, but I have the right to look down on a stereotypical German humor from my high mountain fastness. Anywho, you can clearly get the impression that there's a very different way, let's say, the public TV, but also the courts approach humor depending on who makes the jokes. And you have this actually had a series of hundreds of suits brought by left-wing, primarily Greens Party politicians in the last years against just ordinary people who mocked them online.
Aha.
So yes, there has been a very famous case where a pensioner, I think it was 65-year-old from Bavaria, has a daughter with Down syndrome, and he just shared a meme online which depicted, let's say, the Greens Party vice chancellor in a negative way, somehow alluding that he is a moron.
Calling him a moron, right? Go on.
Not exactly calling him a moron, but I mean, we've talked about it before the show that it's actually difficult to convey this in words. So there is this. The meme was as goes. There is this famous brand of shampoos in Germany, which is called Schwarzkopf, which is like a black head. The logo is a black head, and the words Schwarzkopf, so which means black head. It's, I think, the name of the founder. And there is the insult in German. It's actually a very mild insult, Schwachkopf, which means like weak head, translates to moron. So the originator, the creator of that meme, had just replaced the Schwarzkopf with a Schwachkopf, and then juxtaposed this with a picture of the Robert Habeck, the Greens Party vice chancellor, and this was widely shared online, also by said pensioner, I think even an ex-soldier actually from Bavaria, and this was discovered by. Well, we're not exactly sure how it was discovered, but there is an NGO in Germany which is subsidized by the state, which actually supports politicians in suing ordinary citizens for defamation. Because there's a paragraph in German law which exists almost nowhere else in Europe that makes it a criminal offense to insult a politician.
Imagine that, Alex. It's criminal.
What?
It's criminal. It's a criminal offense in Germany to insult a politician. I think maybe we should introduce this. Well, you should introduce this one in the UK. What do you reckon?
Might be a criminal offence in Germany. It's a national sport in the United Kingdom. A national sport that I get paid to do on a regular basis.
This is the basis of your whole career.
I'd be over. I'd be done. I'd be broken. But you know, what's interesting is this sort of change of when it comes to the limitations on freedom of speech isn't unique to Germany alone. This has been happening across Europe, and it's very much an overzealous left who kind of think that under the guise of globalism and supranational governments, that it's all their way, that they control the system, and that anything that rallies against that is an actual threat, is a danger, and needs to be treated as such. And this seems to echo not just in Germany, but in the United Kingdom, in France, in Italy, in Scandinavia. And you have to really ask what's going on. Who decided this? When did the first domino fall? And why has it taken hold of the continent so much?
That's a good question. I mean, that ties into all the censorship laws, the so-called Digital Services Act or whatever, and here in Brussels. I mean, what do you reckon, Chris? Is this a Europe-wide phenomenon?
Well, from what I'm reading and seeing, it definitely is. I mean, you have clear tendencies in most of the countries that I look at, and if you compare it, for example, to the United States, it's we basically live in a thought prison already, and you can face actually very harsh consequences if you deviate from the, let's say, the righteous path, or the path that they have set as the righteous one. You can lose your job, you can even go to prison, you can have to pay a fine, but it's noteworthy that it's always mainly people on the right who are then subject to these harsh measures. I mean, I can't recall any case where someone has faced real consequences for exposing left-wing extremists.
Apart from this guy Hotzo, of course.
I mean, we don't know if he was
Ah.
okay. He actually the state TV station he was working for felt obliged to end the working contract.
Is that under pressure from the Trump administration? Do you think there's a connection? Because I know that Elon Musk complained about him, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, this thing made quite a splash internationally. Elon Musk complained to then Social Democrat Chancellor of Germany Olaf Scholz, asking, "What's this about?" Like this guy Hotzo, who basically is jubilant about the attempt at Donald Trump's life, and before basically said something similar about Musk, though I don't recall exactly what he did. And I can very well imagine, because Berlin is a deeply red German state, that behind the scenes there was a lot of pressure to, okay, at least as a sign of good faith, stop working with that guy.
Well, Alex, here's a question for you. Given all the stories about people being detained for insulting other people on Twitter, do you actually think twice before posting stuff nowadays or not?
Yeah, I think everyone does, don't they? I think we all have that sense. I mean, it's almost psychological torture to do a 4-hour radio show on a right-wing channel, which is supposed to be completely unbound and unfiltered. You come off air and you think, blimey, the Roz is going to knock at my door any moment. But thankfully, being able to criticise politicians is perfectly acceptable in the UK, so much so that the Nation has a nickname for Sir Keir Starmer, which is Two-Tier Keir, exactly for this reason, because the left wing and the right wing are treated extremely differently in the eyes of the law. But it is becoming increasingly difficult. I mean, I'm just quite thankful, really, that when I do my output, I'm sitting in what I like to call Talk Towers, the home of News UK, which at the very top of that tree is Rupert Murdoch. So I kind of think, great, you try come after the Murdochs. You'll have to deal with them if you want to go after me. But for a lot of ordinary people, and this is the thing, the establishment will not necessarily always go after an ordinary person. It's the people at the bottom. It's the average person. The Lucy Connolly's, who is a childminder, who has found herself in prison to be used as an example to intimidate and upset and scare everybody else. And that, to me, is utterly despicable. So, yes, we've got to be careful on the right, don't we? We might sort of have a little bit of schadenfreude when we see that this El Hotzo guy might be in front of the public prosecutor for incitement to violence or condoning violence. But we've got to be very careful what we wish for, because it's very tempting, isn't it, to think, great, this is it. The playing field's being levelled. They're going to go after the left now as well. What we ideally want is nobody to be gone after for making a joke, however distasteful we find it, however much we don't like it. We've now got a situation where one of the hosts of MasterChef, a major programme in the United Kingdom, one of those men has been fired from his role for decades of sexual harassment and sexual misconduct, and the other guy, who's done nothing wrong, has now also been fired because apparently about 8 years ago in a pub he might have used a racial slur that apparently even the person who said he did do this, he apologised straight away and didn't mean it in any harmful way, and now he can't even remember doing it, and he's just lost his job. So it's not just a case of what we say today. We've now got this sort of archaeological offence digging where people are going through social media posts and programmes and even private comments in a pub and actually wanting people to get punished for that. It's terrifying.
What about you, Chris? Are you doubly careful about what you put online? I mean, especially if it's going out in Germany.
Well, no one follows me on X, so I feel like I can say what I want.
Well, I don't know if that's true. But Alex just said they can come after the little guy, huh?
Yeah, of course. And I mean, I have no Rupert Murdoch to defend me, so I only have a security door which is doubly locked now that I'm talking to you. No, I mean, of course, you think about what you say, and I mean, it's basically the state or the left, adopting this Maoist doctrine. No, you punish one and you educate 1,000, because it's clear that also from my friends who I would label as right wing, you hear that, okay, yeah, I can tell you that, but I cannot say it at work, for example. I have one friend who works at a big multinational company, and if you look at what he writes online publicly on LinkedIn, etc., it's all like straight in this political
Bland.
correct left wing, yes, diversity loving, climate change fearing.
Right, I guess your
Word
point
salad.
is, if we go down this road, we're heading towards self-censorship. Maybe we're already there. In fact, maybe we're now living in a self-censored society.
Yes. I guess you could say we're living in a modern Biedermeier era, like in the 19th century when people were afraid of the state's like secret police, etc., the absolutist monarchs, and then turned inward, like made a nice place at home, but tried not to basically stand out politically. I guess we're heading there.
Oh dear, that's a depressing thought, Alex. Sort of like a Soviet state.
Do you have these sort of strange things that we have in the UK, which are non-crime hate incidents, that the police can come after you, and you've actually got places in Scotland where you can go and report a hate crime. One such place is a mushroom farm, believe it or not. You can go along to this mushroom farm and say, someone said a word that offended me, and that's a non-crime hate incident, and the police can turn up, drag you to a prison cell, seize your electronic goods, ask you why you said this such awful language, why you have such dangerous sentiments. But it's not a crime, but it still gets recorded, which to me is just really quite chilling and pointless and a waste of police resources when, you know, they're responding to the mushroom farm SOS because somebody said, I don't like migration. And then meanwhile in London, there are people being stabbed to death in the street for their Rolex. So, we have this very strange perversion of law and order in the UK that's having a real world effect. And people are aware of this. We joke about it in the UK a lot because if you don't laugh, then you'll probably cry. But it's very serious. And sometimes you have to take a step back and take a deep breath and think, when did this happen? I couldn't have imagined us living in a society like this 10 years ago. And yet it's amazing how it takes root so perniciously and becomes so normalized that we all just live with it. It's this gradual, stealthy creep of censorship that you suddenly go, oh, that's just the way things are now, as if it's always been that way.
Well, I guess the answer to your question is yes, because you made me think of a story we followed here on Brussels Signal, and that is the Member of Parliament who is being prosecuted in Finland for quoting the Bible. And the case was thrown out at a local level, but the public prosecutor appealed. The appeals court also threw it out, and now it's going to the Supreme Court. And everyone expects the case to be thrown out. And as you say, it could be a total waste of taxpayer time. Anyway, let's move on because lots of other stuff happening in the news. What do you think, guys, to Mr. Trump, President Trump, and these trade talks? What on earth is going on? I'm struggling to follow it because it's all on again, off again, 30%, 10%, nothing, 150%. And I'm totally confused as to, one, do tariffs work? And two, what is the US aiming at? And three, how can the EU actually respond? Does the EU have any cards to play, as President Trump once put it? Chris, what do you reckon?
Well, I mean, what's happening now is basically what was announced 3 months ago in like mid-April. Donald Trump announced a 3-month pause for the tariffs, which sent everybody basically buying stocks again, etc., saved the stock market. And now these 3 months are almost over, and since he did not get the result he was hoping for, now he's trying to turn up the heat again. And we will have to see where that ends. I mean, now basically everybody expects Trump ultimately to fold again. You probably all heard of this TACO acronym. Trump always chickens out. So this is the regime we're under now, that people believe, okay, in the end, all this blustering won't lead to any actual, like really crippling tariffs, like maybe lower ones, like in the UK trade deal that was announced recently. But I mean, Trump can still surprise everybody. And there is this notion that now that he got what he wanted, namely the big, beautiful bill, this big tax reform, now he can afford politically to turn up the heat again. So
Of course, Trump hates Brussels. He once called this city some kind, I think it was a hellhole. I think that those were the words he used. And everyone here in Brussels hates him. I mean, all you have to do is go to the European Commission, for example, and down to a man, down to a woman, they all will openly express their hatred of the US president. So I guess talks are not exactly friendly from that point of view. But then again, the UK's already got a deal. The EU, when the UK struck that deal, said, it's no good, we're going to get a better one. And now maybe it looks as if the EU won't. Will pay for its scoffing. Now, is it the case, Alex, I ask you, that in the UK everyone's like, oh, aren't we clever, we did a deal with Trump early? Is that how people have...
No. We just realised we've got a very weak Prime Minister who can't do a deal to save his life. I mean, actually, when it comes to who gets pushed around, Starmer's already gets pushed around the most, but we didn't run a trade deficit with America at all. And Donald Trump's a bit of an Atlanticist, and sort of squirming, sycophantic, obsequious Starmer went over to the Oval Office and brandished this invite to a big state welcome to Donald Trump. You get to ride in the royal carriages and meet the royal family, playing to his ego, which always works. We've seen that this does work. If people blow smoke up his posterior, he suddenly sort of puffs out his chest and rather likes you, which the EU are not particularly used to doing. And the EU are used to being the big bullies, okay? They're used to giving everybody else the runaround and using their might of a block of Western member states to stick it to developing world countries and essentially be able to tariff strip from those countries in order to access raw minerals for the big multinational companies without having to pay extra, but then put in place a load of non-tariff barriers to trap them in agrarian poverty. So the EU is essentially getting a taste of its own medicine. Donald Trump likes things done simply, clearly, effectively, which again is not something the EU is ever good at doing. But also he senses, doesn't he, a couple of things. Number one, that for a long time, the structure of the EU, the establishment within Brussels, is rather anti-Atlanticist. They have said awful things about Donald Trump. They frankly don't really like America. Whereas Britain has always been the sort of intermediary between Europe and between its cousins, the other side of the pond. But I think this also has a geopolitical level, because at the same time, he's trying to get Europe to pay its way in NATO, to put its money where its mouth is when it talks about we must defend Ukraine, but never really going far enough to do that. And he's had enough. He's looked at what's going on in Europe. He's no fan of Europe. He's no fan of the EU. He's always really rather admired Brexit as a concept because he's also very superstitious of supranational governance. And so I think he's giving them the runaround. And effectively so, because when it comes to who's going to win this battle, there are certain member states of the EU, such as Ireland, which through lowering corporation tax has played host to some of the big American .com companies, which could be really badly off if there is a worse degradation in the relationship between America and the EU than there is at present. But meanwhile, what's going to happen in America? Well, Americans might not get French cheese or German cars, but I don't think they're going to be crying themselves to sleep over that. So I think Donald Trump does have the whip hand, and it's interesting seeing the EU on the back foot for a change.
Chris, what is it like in Austria and Germany when they think of America? Because as Alex said, in the UK we get the impression that sort of we are naturally pro-American for a number of reasons, including a shared language, and that French, for example, are naturally anti-American, because who wants McDonald's on the Champs-Elysees when you can eat snails? But what about the Germans and the Austrians? What do they think?
I would put them quite far in the anti-American camp on the whole. I mean, also here in Germany and Austria, it's basically a standard routine to denigrate or denigrate Donald Trump and the Republicans and Americans in general. And I mean, you actually see that now we're facing the consequences of our own, basically, aversion to free trade 10 years ago, when Austria, for example, was among the most aggressive enemies to TTIP, to this planned US-EU free trade agreement. So if we had that in place now, then we would have, of course, a totally different standing. But yeah, I think it's actually a good point you mentioned, Alex, that ever since the UK left the EU as basically despite all its say deficiencies or weaknesses, the beacon of, let's say, libertarianism, the EU has drifted further and further towards sort of anti-business, socialist, totalitarian
protectionism.
Protectionism, and now we're faced with someone who has also discovered protectionism now and who is perhaps in a better position to negotiate than we are, even though for both sides it would, in my view, be best to abolish obstacles to trade as far as possible. But yeah, I mean, now the EU is in a way getting reaping what it sowed for a long time.
Okay, listen, guys. Well, what we normally do is we have to come up with a hero and a zero for this episode, and I'm not sure what we're going to do. I mean, are we going to propose I'm wondering if public prosecutors across Europe should be this week's zero, in the sense that, taking comedians to court is just not on. How about that? Does that count?
Lefty lawyers, as we would say. Lefty lawyers, the lot of them, the entire cabal, whether they're immigration lawyers, whether they're lawyers for offence or whatever this is. I mean, the lot of them. We've got a big problem with the judiciary, it seems.
Okay, right.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, but also because they're taking ordinary citizens to court for really non-offences and sentencing them to, or basically causing them to be sentenced to high fines, in some cases even prison, just for voicing their thoughts.
Right. So the little man, then, we can do it both ways. The public prosecutors and the lawyers are this week's zero for picking on the little man, or woman, obviously, who is only expressing his opinion or making a joke. And the hero, is the hero the little woman, or are we going to go for somebody else?
Actually, I like that. Let the hero be the person who still stands up for their right to freedom of speech, who still wants to push back against the blob, who isn't intimidated, and still wants to hold on to what are good old-fashioned Western values.
How about that, Chris?
I would agree. Let's nominate Stefan Niehaus, this pensioner who had his house raided over the moron meme, and who then doubled down in actually an op-ed for one of Germany's major newspapers, saying basically he regrets nothing and he has become alienated from this country in the state it is now.
Great. So this week's hero is the little guy. Wonderful. Okay, well, that's it. That's episode 5, I think. And watch all the others and let me know if I got that number right. And leave some comments, please, so we can discuss them next time. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Chris. That was fun.
Thank you, Justin.